But if we can get the authors on to talk about it in their own words, I mean, it's a thrill for me. So, I mean, let me introduce you real quick. This is Jeff Pearlman, a guy who's probably just published his 10th New York Times bestseller. I don't know. Is that a designation that comes like right away? That you know that already, since obviously it's going to be in Barnes and Noble and things, or?
All right, I'm going to tell you a few things about that. That's an interesting question. Okay, number one, I have not actually written 9 New York Times bestsellers, and people get this wrong. And I feel like it's deliberately a sleight of hand on the publishing company's part, but I'm okay with it, which is my biography reads the New York Times best-selling author of 9 books, right? Because, here's my dog, because being a New York Times best-selling author is like once you do it, you always have it, right? So you can always say he's a New York Times best-selling author. I've had 6 books wind up on the list of the 9. So I am a New York Times best-selling author, but I have not written 9 New York Times best-selling books.
Okay, I'm just trying to inflate your ego.
I'll take it. I am actually the New York Times best-selling author of 100 books, all of which were number 1 on the list.
Nice. Well, I sent you a note because I read the entire new book, which let me introduce that real quick. His newest book, and it's published right now, is The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. I begged Jeff for a copy that I was able to read on my computer, and I could not put it down. I texted you, second day I had it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm ignoring everybody in my life because this book is just fantastic. And oh, by the way, I'm going to stop writing altogether because it's so damn good.
Oh, come on, man. Also, everyone in your life, they all texted me and they thanked me because they said, finally, he stopped bugging us. This is great. Thank you so much.
That's what it was. Yeah, they were living the high life. But no, all bullshit aside, Jeff, I'm not, okay, full disclosure, right? You and I are middle-aged guys. That's not going to be a surprise to anybody.
Speak for yourself, man. Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Bo Jackson is like right directly in mine. I'm assuming your wheelhouse, right? Mm-hmm. But just the way the book is written, I mean, man, I'm telling you right now, like my first thought was I'll never be able to write it as well.
I assure you that's not true, but thank you. It's kind of
okay. Well, let's start the interview by so at the end of the book you talk about having gone to the University or Auburn University, where Bo went to college. We all know that. And you just kind of surveyed everybody, 100 kids, and you just said, hey, do you know who this guy is, right? So my own little interpretation of that is, so I'm all jacked up to read your book, read it, come out, triumphantly announce to my kids, oh my God, I just read the best book about Bo Jackson. They kind of look at me, my teenagers go, oh, I've heard of him, but, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I need your help because this is what they hit me with, okay? My son's like, okay, so the guy, had 500 carries and he doesn't even had 3,000 yards in the NFL. Okay, so he played baseball and he hit 250. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask the author how he would respond to that.
The first thing I do is I always show people the video of him climbing up the wall in Baltimore. And I'm like, have you ever seen anyone do this? Then I show the video of him breaking the bat over his head. And I say, have you ever seen anyone do this? Then I show the video of him running 91 yards on Monday Night Football with like all the best players in the Seattle secondary, including a Hall of Famer, Kenny Easley, having the angles on him and just being eviscerated. And I show them that. And I'm like, have you seen this stuff? And then I show him like him running over Bosworth. And like, this guy, Brian Bosworth, was the most heavily hyped, defensive player coming out of college that year. And this just absolutely destroyed him. And then I always say, when Bo Jackson was in high school, people will be like, well, what's crazy about Bo Jackson? I always say, as a senior in high school, he won the Alabama State Decathlon Championship, sprained his ankle doing so. The next day, his baseball team needed someone to pitch a game in a state playoff game. He had not pitched all year. He pitched, struck out 13 in the win. And then I'll say, he stole 90 out of 91 bases in high school. He set the national high school single season home run record at 20. He won the Heisman Trophy. He could have been an Olympic sprinter. He qualified for the U.S. Nationals. It's just on and on. It's so utterly preposterous, his athleticism. And, he became a marketing bonanza. He was bigger than Jordan for a brief period of time as a marketer.
Yeah, that's what I shot back with is like the first thing you have to do is just be like, shut up, kids, go to YouTube. right? Type in Bo Jackson, you have no idea. Now, I guess their question does speak to, if you have no idea, right? Their question does kind of get at the heart of the matter of being a freak athletically, but just unfortunately your body failing, or I guess that wasn't the case because he was injured. But I guess it does speak to that. It's like, what kind of greatness could we have seen would Jackson have continued both careers?
I mean, it's a little bit of a trick question because he wasn't going to play football much longer. He was going to play one more year. But let's say we'll go hypothetically. I think as an NFL player, he could have been, honestly, not just saying this, I think he could have been the greatest running back of all time. I just think his combination of speed and power was ridiculous. It was Jim Brown-esque, and I do. I think if he played 16 games for 10 seasons, we're talking about still maybe the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. And I would say baseball wise, if he had fully devoted himself to baseball and really put in the work, I think he had Mike Trout level talent. I do. I think realistically, considering that he didn't work on it, he didn't devote any offseason to it, he was super raw and never really improved in that area. He could have had a Sean Green like career, which is an excellent major league career, but not a Hall of Famer, not an all-time legend.
Okay, that's interesting. And all the while, Bo Jackson, you say in the book, characterized himself first as a baseball player.
Yeah, very much so. I think the thing is, like, he enjoyed the rhythms and the pace of baseball. He liked being in the outfield. He liked waiting for the pitches. He liked talking with his teammates in the outfield between pitching changes. He liked sitting on the bench. He liked spitting sunflower seeds, like everything about the baseball. And also he liked not getting hit all the time. And he wasn't really a machismo guy in the way football is. Like he wasn't walking into bars in a tank top flexing, and he wasn't trying to get laid everywhere he went. Like he wasn't that guy. So I think baseball spoke much more to his sensibilities. And he was a better football player than baseball player, but I think baseball spoke to his sensibilities a little more.
Man, it's interesting. So the first thing I usually talk to authors about when I'm so fortunate to talk to you guys is the title of the book. I often find people gloss over the title a lot. I mean, the title is a byline that ends up catching a headline that ends up getting a book sold. But I look at it a little deeper, just the words selected. Did you ever consider? So the title again is, where is it? The last book hero, the life and myth of Bo Jackson. Did you ever think about swapping myth and life? So it would be the myth and life of Bo Jackson?
Not until this moment, but that's actually not a bad idea.
Well, I was thinking to myself, because a lot of when I was, and again, trying to explain to my children, right? It's not about much, I guess on the field splendor it's eye candy on the field too, but it's a lot about this mythology, like the mythology of him growing up in Bessemer, Alabama. And that's what I wanted to ask you about is, what, after doing these 700 interviews you did, give me like your favorite kind of mythology about Jackson based on, from his, just specifically like his time in Alabama.
Oh, I mean, in a way, so I heard for a long time, we're encompassing Auburn into his time in Alabama, right? Or no?
Sure.
I heard a lot of people talking about the first night game at the University of Georgia, baseball game. And I heard a lot of talk about it, but there's no video of it. There isn't that much record of it even. And I kept diving more and more into it and becoming more and more intrigued by it, which is the University of Georgia had this crappy field, Foley Field. No, it was basically a high school stadium. The head coach was hired, Steve Weber from Florida, and he thought, we need lights at this stadium. They finally put in the budget for lights, and they decide this is Bo Jackson's junior year at Auburn. They're going to have Auburn play the first night game. And a lot of that is a draw of Bo Jackson because there was this Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker dichotomy going on at the time. And if you were in Alabama, you were Bo. If you were in Georgia, you were Herschel. So Auburn comes, they play the first night game. It's a huge deal. It's a sold out stadium, which never happened in baseball at Georgia. Vince Dooley, the Georgia coach, is there. They have dignitaries there. They print out special tickets and lithographed and script, and Bo Jackson plays. And his first at bat, he grounds out against a pitcher named Larry Lyons, community college transfer at Georgia. And when he goes into the outfield, in right field behind the fence, there's something called kudzu hill in Georgia, and kudzu is a weed you see in overgrowth you see in the South. And all these fans can drink because they're not in the stadium. They're behind the fence and they're booing Bo and they're mocking Bo and they're talking trash to Bo. He comes up his second time up and he hits a home run. And I interviewed a great writer named Tommy Tomlinson, who writes a lot about sports and about the South. He said it's the farthest ball he's still ever seen hit. And it hit the lights fixture. It literally hit the lights. And this is 39 days before The Natural came into theaters, right? And he jogs back into the outfield. Tommy said, and I talked to other people too, confirm this. Like when he hit the ball, like a movie, it was dead silence. It wasn't like, oh, it was like, what the hell? He runs back out to the outfield and they start doing a bowing motion. All the fans who are, then he hits 2 more home runs in the same game. His next 2 at bats, so he homers 3 times. His last at bat, he doubles and everyone boos him because he only hit. I just love it. And I love, like, I talked to so many people. I talked to Georgia players. I talked to Auburn players. I talked to Chip Carey, who covered the game. I talked to the editor of the Georgia student newspaper who was there. I just really wanted to, because there's no video of it. And that's the whole last folk hero thing and myth thing. Nowadays, that thing is on Twitter 2 seconds after it happens. And it's not mythological. It's, oh, did you see that home run from Bo Jackson? Whoa, that was a shot. It reminds me of the time blank. But now what we have are these amazing stories. And what adds to it is like, he hit that thing 400 feet. Nah, man, that was 500 feet. It hit the lights right in the middle. Well, it was a little to the right, but then one of them broke. No, it didn't. Like, that's the whole joy of it all.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's one of the reasons, like, I came into reading the book and I thought, hasn't this book been done before, right? Because I was thinking of Bo Knows Bo by Dick Schaap. And that's part of my review as well. And I said, the thing that this book does differently is exactly what you said, right? It takes all the legend and puts it into words that are discernible, because I think that memory clouds facts sometimes. And so it was nice to see that you had, because you took old press guides and things, you talked to 700 people, like I said. I mean, that's how you piece together the true events of these various athletic feats.
Well, I got lucky with one thing in particular. I found out from someone at Auburn that Dick Schaap, before he died, donated all his notes and transcripts from Bo Knows Bo to the Auburn Library, including audio tapes. And I was able to buy them. So, Bo Jackson was not helpful with this book. He wasn't a jerk about it, but he wasn't helpful. But all of a sudden, I'm basically listening to every conversation you could find with a 28-year-old Bo Jackson, who's telling much fresher stories than he would be now at 60. And it was amazing. And most of the stuff wasn't used in the book. It was very selective. And also, like, there were things in there he probably didn't want in his autobiography. There's, I write extensively about race relations at Auburn. I write about the booster system at Auburn. I write about players getting paid at Auburn. I write about Bo Jackson beating the snot out of Kevin Seitzer, his teammate with the Royals.
Yeah.
Unnamed in the Bo book. I mean, one area I really dove into, and I don't think it's mentioned in Bo Knows Bo, is when Bo was at Auburn, he was a sophomore, and his another running back, Greg Pratt, died running drills of heat stroke. And it was this really tragic and profound moment for Auburn's players, including Bo. And I reached out to Greg Pratt's family. I spoke to people who were at the funeral. Guys remembered, like, Bo Jackson. Like, back then, one of the things you did, I don't know if you've been to many African-American funerals, but I'm a Jewish guy, right? It's much more lively and spiritual oftentimes, not to paint a broad brush, but, like, especially in the South, it's very live. And, one guy was talking about Bo Jackson pulling out a Polaroid camera, a little instant camera, not a Polaroid, a little yellow Kodak, and taking a picture of Greg Pratt lying in the casket. And that wasn't touched in Bo Knows Bo. And that's fine. It's his autobiography. He can say what he wants. But I do think there's a value in taking a lens from the outside and looking in at someone.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then, so you've kind of talked about the mythology of Bo Jackson. Let's talk about his life, because the book's title has both in it. So the intriguing parts of his life to me, the girls, the dual, the only part I didn't really understand, and it's probably just me, is the whole, like, dating the older lady who's like a professor or a tutor of some kind alongside his now current wife, but now he's totally committed to his current wife. Was that like a tangled web that you even had to go, like, what is going on?
Right. There's I got to find it, but there's a note in the book. It actually made me laugh. And I kept thinking, I should tweet this out at some point. And I didn't, but, Basically, all right. So first of all, I have to say, I feel like there are two things in this book that if you're Bo, you probably wouldn't love. Because I think mostly it's kind of a ode to Bo Jackson, like
Mhm.
in greatness. It's not you would agree, I think it's not a tear down Bo Jackson book.
Agree.
I didn't think at all. I didn't see it that way. And but he basically, it's interesting. He ended up marrying his wife Linda. Linda was, I think, 6 years older than Bo. They've had by all accounts, a wonderful marriage. They've been married for almost 40 years. He's an ideal husband and father. And this stuff took place in college. And I always view like college relationships with a little bit of wink, wink, nod, nod. Like my girlfriend cheated on me in college. I'd probably cheat on my girlfriend in college. Like it's not,
Hmm.
but I'm writing about that time period, right? So you do what you got to do. And I found out that someone said to me, Bo had a girlfriend named Allison. And they were like, I don't remember her last name, but Allison, he had a girlfriend named Allison. And I knew from doing research that you could not be an African American athlete at Auburn and date a white girl and have people know it. You could do it covertly. They made it clear you could date someone and it can on the down low, but you're not gonna have a white girlfriend if you were a black football player and have people know it. So someone told me that he had a girlfriend named Allison. So I got a hold online of the Auburn yearbooks, the old Auburn yearbooks, and I looked for every Allison. And there was only one African American Allison. And she happened to be a Tigerette, which was the Auburn sort of booster squad at the school. Well, I reached out to her on Facebook. Did you happen to date Bo Jackson? I did date Bo Jackson. And we ended up speaking at length. And I found her loving. And wait, I just want to say the bottom of the page 202, I did write this. I wrote, even by the standards of inconsistent college romances, it's truly all super weird. So Bo Jackson played in the Japan Bowl after his senior year. The flight to Japan departed on January 5th, 1986. And for the duration of the trip, Bo introduced Linda as, quote, my fiance. On February 9th, 1986, so a month later, the Opelika Auburn News ran the piece headline, Bo engaged, his future bride wind beneath his wings, concerning his engagement to Allison, so not Linda. Accompanying the article was a photograph of Bo, arm wrapped around Hines' shoulders, Allison. It was taken after Japan. So Japan, he took Linda. This is Allison. So to review, Bo proposed to Allison. Bo impregnated Linda. Bo proposed to Linda. Bo brought Allison to the Heisman ceremony. Bo brought Linda to Japan and introduced her as my fiance. Bo was profiled in a newspaper story alongside his fiance, Allison. And like, if you're Bo, you'll probably be like, ugh, really? But I just find it kind of funny. And like, he's been married to this woman for years. It was a college thing. Like, it's not an indictment of your character. I don't view it that way. And it was just kind of entertaining.
Yeah, that's even to hear you read the note and see you smile. I could just imagine you at the computer, like just dying laughing.
It
Oh
was
my
fun.
God,
It
that's
was fun.
great.
And also, his girlfriend had a great sense of humor about it. Like, she's really nice. And she's like, we were kids. She's like, I thought I was going to be with Bo forever. And she's like, I was just a young, dumb kid. I was 19 years old when I started dating him. I didn't
Yeah, and
know
I
who.
think you kind of wrote it that way, so that probably did just justice to whatever life she has now. You know, related again on the life side of Bo, and this is going to be a question, Jeff, that you're not. I don't think you're going to be asked this by anybody else, even your fancy Today Show or anything like that.
All right, you're
And
setting this
and
up. You're setting
yeah,
this up.
so why so much about Bo's penis?
My wife is like, why do you have to write about penises every book? Um, all right, I'm sorry. All right,
Because there's a lot to write about. Is that the dad joke that's on
well,
the table for us?
dead on. It's like the Howard Stern line, 6'4" and hung like a pimple. Honestly, when I heard that all right, so first, one of my favorite quotes, maybe in the history of mankind, is Steve Sachs, his teammate in Chicago. He's with the White Sox, he's teammates with Bo. He just was traded there, or he arrived there from New York. The New York press walks into the room, and Steve Sachs is surrounded by New York writers, and he says, guys, seriously, guys, Bo Jackson's penis is like the arm of a young black boy holding a plum. And that's one of the greatest quotes of all time. That is one of the singularly greatest quotes of all time. Then later, he described it as like a hog's heart atop a fence post, which might be the second greatest quote of all time. Then people start telling me about Bo in the clubhouse, and a guy in the White Sox telling me about Bo returning a ping pong ball with his penis. Then, and I'm not like saying like, not one time am I saying to anyone, hey, do you have any great penis stories? Like, it's not like that. Then someone tells me about the time he had to bring ball boy had to bring a ball for Bo to sign, and he rested against his penis to sign the ball. And there's Gary DiSarcina, who's his teammate with the Angels, who Bo nicknamed Horsecock. So like, it just was all really funny. Like, it's just funny, you know, and like, it's not embarrassing. It's not like I'm saying he had a teeny weeny penis. It's
I
like,
know, it's amazing.
well, you know, I don't know. I even named one of the chapters "A Hog's Heart on a Fence Post" because I just love the quote so much.
Oh man, I'm telling you right now, you have to send me a text or something if you get asked that by the Today Show.
All
I
right.
think that might not make air.
Yeah.
You know, all the fancy guys that interview you, who knows? Who knows
I don't
what
think
they'll
I'm
be
bringing that
asking
up.
you?
I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, no kidding, no kidding. So let's take a quick break from your book again. Let me pump the book, The Last Folk Hero: The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson, out now. Go order it everywhere. So let's talk about writing process real quick. Let's take my dorky self wants to know if a big time writer like you that has so many successful books.
Oh, yeah.
What I know I see the eye roll, but come on. So if you have so many successful books like that, how does this project come up? Is it just like it starts as a passion and now you have enough leash to be able to go chase it? Is it somebody pitching you something? Are you pitching it to someone else? Like, how does this all work?
I almost always pitch my own ideas now at this point, not because I'm some big writer, just because I like doing my ideas. And I feel like I have, all right, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. This is a little bit of a long answer, but it makes sense, I think. I wrote a Brett Favre biography. Now I have nothing but detest for Brett Favre these days, but I wrote a Brett Favre biography. And I always think like the parallel athletes from that time period, different sports, are Ken Griffey Jr. and Brett Favre. They both are known for primarily one team, Seattle Mariners, Green Bay Packers. They're both legendary athletes. They're both Hall of Famers. They both did amazing things on the field. I don't think Ken Griffey Jr. is a book that sells. And the question is why? And it's because you sort of know icon when you see it. Like there's something about an iconic figure as opposed to a great figure. And I think Bo Jackson is an iconic figure. And I think part of it is because he did all these amazing things. I think part of it is because his career ended so abruptly. And I just think there's a huge question mark that hangs over him. And I think that is powerful for a book. The idea of an icon. It's almost like in a lot of ways, like I wrote a Walter Payton biography, right? And the iconic power of Walter Payton, more than being at the time the NFL's all-time leading rusher, more than being just sweetness, is that he died young. And when someone dies young, there's something about him. And when someone's career is cut short and everyone thought this guy was going to skyrocket to be the next blank, it's really interesting. And it has a big question mark, a big what if, what could he have been? And I think a lot of people, if a lot of people read this book, I think a lot of that is with the idea of like, wow, Bo Jackson, what could he have become? What could he have been? So that was my pitch. Like this is iconic, mysterious. He's also not a guy who's in the spotlight hawking stuff every day. He's not doing Monday Night Football from the sidelines. He kind of vanished. So that was my sort of pitch to publishers.
I love it. And then one more writer related question. So 700 interviews, like how long did this take to put together? And what's your process? Are you chasing as you're writing? Are you consolidating everything together and then start? How does this all work and how long did it take?
So I take about 2 years, and I don't think most people do this. My friends who are writers don't do this. I take a year and a half and just research. So all I do is research. So that's it. No writing, not a word. And I just, make all the calls, go through the media guides, build up a library. It's always important to build up a Bo Jackson library. And I don't just mean buying every book and newspaper article. I mean building a database day by day of every article he's appeared in. So I would literally sit by my computer, drink ridiculous amounts of soda, coffee, and water, and build this library, and then print it all out, and then go through it with a highlighter. And maybe you find out Bo Jackson was really nice to a cafeteria worker when he was in Auburn. All right, I'm going to circle that name. I'm going to call him. There's a guy in the book. There's a kid who had his leg. He had to have his leg amputated when Bo was at Auburn, an Alabama kid, John Greenberg. And was this guy still alive? Yeah, he's still alive. Find him, call him. So I'm very into that. And then with 6 months or so left, I just take all my materials, I put in a chronological order, and I just sit there and I'm miserable for 6 months and I write.
Man, that's amazing. It's insightful for somebody like me who writes to understand, because I get to your acknowledgement section, I get to your notes. I'm one of the dorks that goes to the last page, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm just so overwhelmed by how prolific the research is, and it's.
You know what? I just want to say, like, I'm being serious about this. This isn't me being bashful, humble. Like anyone can do it. Like that's the thing. I I teach journalism just as an adjunct at a school out here at Chapman University. And I always say to my students, and I genuinely mean this, like, there's always a better writer. There's always someone better connected. Like, I went to the University of Delaware. You know, I'm not like from some journalism powerhouse, but you can control how, like, you can be the hardest worker. That's 100% in your control. So I know there are better writers. I'm friends with better writers than I am. And I'm certainly friends with people who have higher pedigrees. I'm friends with people who are better read than I am. But I know I can bust my ass. So, and you can too. That's the thing. You can too. It takes time. It's not always fun, but you can do it too.
I love it. I love it. So as we end here, the book is, again, The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. It's out now. Order it. This is Jeff Pearlman. You can follow Jeff everywhere, jeffpearlman.com or at Jeff Pearlman. He's quite a Twitter follow. I encourage you to do it. The last question I'll ask you, Jeff, and it's probably something that you'll be asked in your interview junket.
So not about penises.
Not about penises. No, no penises in this one.
This is more vagina-based question.
No.
Okay.
It involves a very prolific athlete with a big penis, allegedly. So when people put down the book or people are considering looking at the book, you know, what do you impart? What's like the legend of Bo Jackson?
I think you'll know this was the greatest athlete who ever lived, and you'll be simultaneously heartbroken and uplifted by what could have been.
Man, that's so well said. I should expect nothing less from such a prolific New York Times author. 9 times or 100 times. I can't remember what you told me.
150. It was 150.
Okay, cool. Well, next time you publish a book, man, let's get back on, if not before then. I really admire your work. No, all bullshit aside, I really admire the work. And I'm telling you, it questions my ability to ever write again.
Did you go to Iowa?
Yes.
Maybe that's your problem.